So we're in United's build-up phase in their defensive third, and you can see that Yoro has the ball on the edge of the box, with United set up in that familiar 3-4-3 shape as the wing-backs push up in line with the double pivot. And Arsenal at this point are in a 4-2-4 defensive shape, with Martinelli sitting slightly deeper on the left than Sakari's on the right. Yoro plays the pass back to Bayindir, and immediately we can see from the matchups that United have an overload in the centre, with Zubimendi dropping over to Arsenal's right side, United's left with Mason Mount, in order to prevent Ben White being overloaded in a 2v1 against Mount and Dorgu on United's left-hand side. Now from this position, if you're sticking to tactical theory optimally, Arsenal really should be going man for man, in order to prevent Bruno Fernandes from becoming the free man in the centre, with United currently having a 3v2. But due to the threat of Mbeumo and Cunha in behind, and the frequency at which United do use long balls from deeper positions, it seems like Arteta wanted a man advantage with a 3v2 on the halfway line. And so if you were looking at this purely from a tactical theory point of view, you would say that this is a tactical mistake from Arteta, considering that Arsenal are looking to press United aggressively in their defensive third from build-up. However, it was likely a specific tactic deployed for this Manchester United game, with Arsenal's pressing shape not usually leaving a free man in the centre of the pitch and an overload, or a significant amount of vertical space between the defensive and midfield lines, as you're going to see appear in this clip when Arsenal press. And so with Mbeumo and Cunha, this did set up United to take advantage of this 3v2 overload, but we weren't able to do it frequently enough throughout the game, in order to turn Arteta's calculated risk into a tactical error. And from this vantage point, you're going to get a clear-cut view of exactly what United's issues are in possession that you can't simply get through looking at shots or XG when it happens to be convenient. But before I get into that, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. They've got the new Manchester United releases for the upcoming season, with OK Jersey also allowing you to pick up high quality football shirts from just £15, plus free shipping across Europe for all orders over £45. They sent me over these new release alternative Manchester United jerseys from this season, as well as a long sleeved retro home shirt from the 92-93 season with Cantona 7 on the back, alongside this Nuno Gomes Benfica shirt from the 97-98 season as well. If you use code ALANTIS at checkout, you'll get a discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comment section below. So as Bayindir has possession here, this initial part of United's build-up strategy is exactly what you want to see. Both Casemiro and Ligt are going to move towards the ball, which has two clear benefits. Firstly, they are reducing the passing distance between themselves and Bayindir, reducing the chance of an interception, but also because Arteta has assigned Odegaard and Rice to man-to-man press both of them, their deeper movement is going to work to drag both Arsenal players high, which means that because Cunha, Mbeumo and Mount are all retaining high positions at the top of United's half, the space between Arsenal's midfield and defensive lines becomes stretched. And now we can see a highly promising situation coming about. United have a 3v2 around the box, with Yoro, Shaw and Bayindir at the base, and Ligt and Casemiro in front, which because of Arsenal's man-to-man press high up the pitch, but going for an extra man on halfway, this leaves Bruno Fernandes in an enormous amount of space. And from here the good work continues, as Ligt does exactly what he should, which is to accelerate quickly from a static position, breaking away from Odegaard by a few yards, further reducing the space between him and the keeper. Gyökeres has applied pressure with a curved run, cutting off the passing lane out to Yoro. However, Bayindir can find Yoro indirectly by playing a vertical wall pass into Ligt, who does excellently to bounce the ball first time out to Yoro, which now not only takes Gyökeres out of the game, leaving Yoro as a free man, but has also dragged Odegaard even higher, right to the edge of the box, with Casemiro doing the same to Rice, stretching the space between the lines of the Arsenal pressing shape, giving Bruno Fernandes even more space in the centre of United's half, and so he's now sitting completely free with space to turn and play forward. However, the possession strategy, specifically when the ball goes out to the wide centre-backs, is United's biggest issue at the moment in build-up. See, when Yoro receives a pass from Ligt, ideally Ligt's pass would be a few yards ahead of Yoro, so that he can just stride onto the ball, and due to his momentum, his first touch would take him goal side of Rice, which would then force Martinelli to either back off to cover the run of Dalot on his outside, vacating further space for Yoro to carry the ball out of the defensive third, or alternatively he could move to engage Yoro, leaving Dalot completely free to run into the space down Arsenal's left side, United's right, where from Yoro either directly or via a passing field into Mbeumo or Bruno can work the ball out to Dalot in that space, or Yoro could just thread the pass directly into Bruno Fernandes in the centre. But even though the ball does go directly to Yoro's feet, rather than a few yards in front of him so that Declan Rice is able to come across and stop him being able to stride forward with the ball, United are still in an incredibly promising situation. And with the right passing sequences and coordinated movements, they could completely play through the centre of Arsenal's disjointed press, creating the sort of quick transitioning artificial counter-attack that Cunha, Bruno and Mbeumo thrive in. But this is where we see the fundamental difference between the possession systems of coaches like Zerbi, Pep, Fabregas and Slot in comparison to Rúben Amorim's, and it's not because of the formation on paper or even the possession shape in this phase of play, it's down to their ball progression strategy. See, using the De Zerbi possession strategy that he popularised whilst at Brighton, United in general, but Yoro specifically from this position, should be focused on playing through the centre of the pitch, with United's front three and wing backs using coordinated movements in order to manipulate the positioning of Arsenal's back line, in order to open up space for runners from deep to exploit. And this of course could be done in a number of different ways, and is why teams will work on a number of different patterns of play and coordinated movements. See, in terms of first principles, you want at least one of Mbeumo or Cunha making a movement towards the ball with intensity, or as we see with Fabregas' Como, De Zerbi's Brighton or even his Marseille sides from time to time, you could have both of these two sitting as the centre forward at this point in play, making that movement towards the ball, in order to reduce the distance between themselves and Yoro, and enable him to play an incisive pass through the centre splitting Rice and Martinelli, where from one of Cunha or Mbeumo can then bounce the ball off to Bruno Fernandes in space, with United now having efficiently worked the ball around and through Arsenal's high press, getting the ball into their free man in the centre of the pitch. But it's not just working the ball into the free man that these coordinated movements and patterns of play allow, because even though Arsenal have the man advantage against Cunha and Mbeumo, if both players look to make movements towards the ball, this is either going to result in one of them becoming a free man to then receive the ball, turn and drive forward, or it's going to work to drag one of or both of Calafiori on Arsenal's left or Saliba in the centre high up the pitch, thereby opening up space for Dalot, the right wing back, and Mount from this interior forward position on the far side to make third man runs into from these initial deeper starting positions, which Bruno Fernandes can then look to find after receiving a layoff from Mbeumo or Cunha, and we've seen on many different occasions how effective Bruno can be during quick transitions in the middle third when finding diagonal runs for Garnacho and Rashford in behind with a defence splitting through ball. And with more offensive options in the wing-back roles, particularly Ahmad at right wing-back, this pattern of play would be even more threatening when breaking into the opposition's half. And if you had a front three of Cunha, Mbeumo and Sesko, you could have one of Cunha or Sesko or even Mbeumo if the build-up occurred on the other side, making this diagonal run in behind the high Arsenal back line when one or two of the defensive line has been pulled high. You could also have Mbeumo initially moving towards the ball in order to drag Calafiori high, before spinning 180 degrees and looking to accelerate goal side to then run into the space his movement has just created down United's right channel, with Cunha also dropping off but being the player to bounce the ball back into Bruno Fernandes, who can then look to find the runs of either Mount from the left side into a central position or Mbeumo down this right side. Or Mbeumo could also provide the deeper movement and the layoff, whilst Cunha makes an initial movement towards the ball, dragging Saliba high and opening up the space for Mount, but with Dalot holding a deeper position on the right flank, Cunha could then curve his run and accelerate across Mbeumo into the space that Mbeumo's created by dragging Calafiori high. However, unlike De Zerbi, Pep, Fabregas and the others, Amorim, like in his Sporting days, prioritises build-up down the channels, and so we see Dalot instead provide this shorter passing option, which Amorim does want from his wing-backs, with the interior forward ahead Mbeumo being the one who looks to move towards the ball before turning and breaking into the space behind. And so stemming from Amorim's principles, Yoro neglects to play this incisive pass in field for a pass outside of Martinelli and Rice into Dalot's feet, which only works to box both Yoro and Dalot in, being right on the touchline with Rice and Martinelli in close proximity. And now as Dalot receives the ball, neither Mbeumo or Cunha have yet provided the movement down the line, and both have Arsenal defenders goal side of them. And the Ligt, Bruno and Casemiro's central positioning earlier on in the move now means that Dalot and Yoro don't have any passing options in field. Zubimendi is also able to get over and push onto Bruno, taking away United's overload and three-man advantage in the centre, and Cunha's deeper movement has neither dragged Saliba high or opened up a passing lane, with him also not being high enough up the pitch in order to provide movement in behind for Yoro's long pass, or at least compete for the aerial ball. And so Dalot has to lay the pass back to Yoro, who doesn't have any other options but to provide a low probability long ball forward, with the connecting of the attack now hinging on Mason Mount not just beating Gabriel in an aerial duel, which he actually impressively manages to do, but also heading the ball directly into Mbeumo's path, which doesn't occur. And even with Sesko, this pattern of play is far lower probability wise of coming off compared with a Zerbi or Farioli strategy of shorter vertical passes and bounce layoffs through the centre. Now don't get me wrong, there were a few examples where we were able to exploit the space between the lines and Bruno as the free man in this game, with Bayindir actually playing an elite level midfield splitting pass through the centre of Arsenal's man-to-man midfield press, but we didn't do it frequently enough, and even this pass is a lot lower probability and riskier in terms of the potential for an interception in a dangerous area than the previous example of enticing the midfield high, bouncing the ball out to Yoro, and then finding that pass into the forward line and laying it off to Bruno. If both passing sequences are done efficiently, of course. We weren't able to exploit Zubimendi's deeper and wider positioning with Mount enough throughout this game, and in general Amorim seems to instruct United to build out through the channels and utilise these sorts of long direct passes into the forward line, which can certainly be effective, as we have seen before with Manchester United and Sporting, but in the Premier League especially, the majority of the time these longer passes are going to result in frequent turnovers and less control of the game, as opposed to a Zerbi, Pep or a Farioli side, not even solely in terms of outright possession, but in terms of being able to sustain attacks high up the pitch, thereby controlling the game, which is not simply the same as having the most possession, as we saw against Arsenal, where despite our possession we didn't even create a clear-cut chance throughout the whole game. Now whilst some people may say that this is purely down to Yoro's decision making and nothing to do with Amorim's system, it's clearly not, because we see this unusual ball progression strategy down the channels during the build-up phase frequently from Amorim, not just at United but also at Sporting, with Gyökeres being a key asset against Premier League centre-backs during this pattern of play, which can't be replicated to the same level week in week out in the Premier League. Amorim utilises a highly structured positional play style in possession, and so unlike more relationist coaches who give their players more freedom, such as maybe Oli, Zidane, Denise or Ancelotti, Amorim wants high amount of control over players' decision making in possession, so you can't then push the responsibility more towards the players, when the burden of responsibility that the coach has comes down to how much control he wants, and Amorim, like Pep, Zerbi and others, wants a high amount of control, which isn't the issue is his ball progression strategy and how it differs to those managers, making United's build-up less optimal when playing through the centre of pressure, leading to more turnovers, and now Amorim seems to have decided to just go long straight from the goalkeeper, which isn't down to the individual players, it's down to Amorim's build-up strategy not being as effective as it was in the Primera Liga. So let me know what you think of that analysis in the comment section below, and if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a discount. I'll leave a link in the description and in the comment section below, and if you want to sign up to my Patreon, I'll leave that linked on the end screen now as well.